All right, guys, today we've got John Robinson in Raleigh, North Carolina with us today. John, you've been through the program, you've been hired. Now everyone wants to know, tell us about your background though before pre-hired.
Yeah, so a little bit about my background. I've been in sales a little bit over 3 years now. I had a couple different sales jobs. The last two recent ones that I had were one of them was inside sales, one of them was outdoor sales. I used to work at Spectrum. Used to do door-to-door sales, so that was pretty interesting. It was a little bit of a culture shock from what I typically envisioned from a actual sales role. But it was a pretty cool role. I learned a lot about sales, just basic fundamentals, how to communicate with customers. But one thing I learned very quickly is you definitely have to grow a tough skin. It's a numbers game. You get a lot of no's, but it was fairly exciting in the beginning. A little bit more into it, I started to realize a couple of things that kind of gave me a bad perception of sales. But once I kind of got a little bit more developed in the industry, I learned that there are different roles that you could play, and that ultimately.
John, you said something really interesting. You had a bad perception of sales. What do you think caused that? What do you remember from working at maybe not maybe Spectrum specifically, but just your couple years experience? What do you think caused that?
Well, I think the main thing was, number one, it was extremely corporate. And so me being the forefront of the company, interacting with the customers on a day-to-day basis, hearing the negative feedback, the things that customers would like, things that they want to see changed, and not really having a platform to voice that for change, that was pretty frustrating, because it was like, here I am, hearing these things, and I could, bring this information back to my supervisors, but it's not going to get to corporate. They have an agenda that they want to run. They're just looking for somebody to fill that slot and take an employee number. And so that for me was pretty frustrating, because when I think about sales, I think about, the big, wolves on Wall Street, the guys that are out there killing it, and so me being in, cable sales, I didn't really feel like that was the industry where I was going to really make a killing. And then also, it was commission only structure. So that was kind of, I never really understood how, you could work a very lucrative sales job and get paid only commission. So that was always confusing to me.
And you know what? You're not the only one that is very confused by that. I tell salespeople all the time, do not work for commission only. The only people who work for commission only are the salespeople who are not good enough yet to be paid a strong base salary plus commissions. And I say that with love, because I say that to anyone who is still on commissions only. It very rarely ever works out in terms of time, the money that you spend, both the company and you lose. Sometimes the company wins though, guys. So this is actually a great point. Guys, if you're doing commission only and the company like has others on commission only, their business model is to rotate through sales reps. They bring on a fresh person who's excited about the possibilities. They give you the Kool-Aid to drink, and then you work for them for 2 to 3 to 4 months, and then you realize, oh crap, I've made some money, but I'm not going to make enough money to pay the bills with this job. But to them, it doesn't matter, because they have a machine that gets in fresh sales reps to work for 3 to 4 months for them and make some money, where they just keep that profit. And they're essentially, their business model is just training and getting rid of salespeople within a 3-month window and keeping that always full. That's how they build their business. It sucks. Don't be a part of it. You'll waste part of your career. You'll waste time and money. Just don't do it. Anyways, John, you hit a nerve with me, man. So I wanted to chime in and say that to anyone watching.
Right.
Now, so you were outside sales, commission only. You didn't really like the work that much. I know you like talking with customers, you mentioned, but what was it really though that got you interested in pre-hired when you read about what we were doing or you found out about us?
Yeah, so initially I've always been a very tech savvy guy. I've loved softwares. I just love technology. Gadgets and just different tools and things like that. And so information and technology has always been an industry that I've kind of had my eye on. And even my dad, he's mentioned a couple of times just different like tech programs, that were kind of in the local area. And so I had kind of already had my eyes, on the horizons. And so I learned about pre-hire through a friend, and he was kind of just sharing with me, his experience of it just within, the first couple of days, and just the information he was learning, how it was so exciting and how it was just so like new age. And so for me, it was just like, man, that's awesome, because, working on these older sales jobs, a lot of the training and the methodologies that you get trained on are very outdated. They're very ineffective. And that was another thing for me that was pretty frustrating. It just seems like a lot of the techniques and and the tactics they were teaching us were like from the 80s. And I'm like, dude, I don't think this is really going to work anymore. And age, like what are the top sales reps doing now, and so I think that was definitely one of the things that was refreshing for me coming across pre-hire, because it was just like, man, like it just seems like this information is fresh, it's new. You're not going to learn this in school. You're not going to learn this on a commission-only structure sales job. So like, what is the information in there that I'm missing? Like, I just felt like this was a missing factor in my sales career.
Yeah, man. So, and you mentioned that one of our other members, which guys, if you've watched any of our other videos, you might have seen Dylan's story, who's also in Raleigh. Dylan told John about this, but when Dylan told you this, John, you had to have a few doubts. I mean, no one really makes a big change like this and decides to go into a new kind of tech career or sales career like this without putting some thought into it, doing research. And then there's normally some doubts that need to be overcome. So what was that for you though?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a couple of doubts. I was just like, well, I definitely want to see how this has worked out for other people. And so kind of when I was on there doing my research, I was looking at the reviews and I was really blown away, honestly. I mean, it was just review after review of people who were super unqualified, people who did have experience and learned much more than they did in their school training. It was just like, wow, like this has to be something that is, very significant. I mean, this stuff really works. You can take somebody off of the street who has no kind of experience in IT and you can train them in 40 hours and get them a 40K to 100K tech job. That's pretty awesome. So for me, it was just like looking at those reviews, and then also Dylan, just kind of sharing his experiences with me. That kind of helped overcome a lot of those, those doubts. And then also for me personally, it was just like, well, I am one of those who don't have any experience in it. I mean, I love tech, but I don't have any experience in it. And so for me, it was just like, how is this going to play out for me? Am I going to, learn this information well enough to be able to do this role?
Yeah. And then that's a good point, John, that you mentioned. So for anyone else that hasn't read this site or checked out our blogs on this topic, John's absolutely right. The starting salaries for someone like John had outside sales experience and like outdoor sales, door-to-door sales, completely different from the job he's doing now. And I wanted to get you to share about that in 1 second. But the jobs that you get, even if you don't have experience, you have very little, or it starts at $40,000 to $65,000 base salary. That's what you're going to expect guaranteed coming into this. And then on top of that, normally you get about 50% of your base in commissions for your first year. So I tell people expect around 60 to 80K depending on your city, the company you've joined, because money's not everything, guys. Remember that. You can get more perks, and if you really are passionate about what you're selling, that's important too. You have a great team. So sometimes we take jobs with a little less money because all the other things are way worth the extra 5 or 10,000 because of all the other benefits we get, especially if it's a remote sales job too. But my point is, expect 60 to 80,000 your first year, second year, 100, 120 if you chose the right company. If not, we talk about how to stop making lateral sales moves in your career. Don't make those lateral moves like so many salespeople do. You want to move up, and we talk about how to do that. Now, John, in the program, what comes to mind, though, when you think about, after you've been through it, what was your favorite part? Like one specific thing that you really liked out of all the stuff that we did?
I think definitely the lead generation and kind of like the sales automation process. That to me was just amazing. It was just, because I have been on the other end of, automated emails, email campaigns, and different things like that. And I always wondered, like, how did this person get my information, number one? Two, how did they find out something personal about me to put in this email? I don't know this person, And so being on the other end of that and then seeing how it's actually done and learning it, it's all coming full circle now. So that to me was just awesome. And I've just fallen in love with Interseller. I mean, I love Interseller. That's probably one of my favorite tools that was covered in the program. And I mean, I pretty much use that all the time, just the analytics that it gives you, the simplicity of using the software, just the effectiveness of it. It was just so much fun learning how to use.
Man, yeah, that's awesome. And the thing that's funny that you mentioned was about you've gotten marketing emails before, and I think now that you've been through the program, hopefully you recognize that the difference between the crappy marketing emails that are awful and you're like, spam, don't contact me. And then the ones that, you do that are really well, like you just said, it's personalized. It shows you've done your research. And for anyone listening to this tip on how to be good in sales, like just use this as a rule. Go for quality over quantity every time. Show people they're not a number on a list. Show them that you know their name. They've got a story. If they feel like they're a number, if they're just a person on your list to check a quota, that pisses people off more than anything is that feeling. So don't let that happen. And so we also go to that in the program. So John, tell us lastly, what happened with, you got hired in a very short amount of time, and it was your number one sales job pick, you were telling me earlier. Tell everyone about kind of like what happened, what were some of your numbers for your outreach, and then just that whole story.
Yeah, so initially, in the Interstellar game, I kind of created a couple different campaigns. I wanted to target some CEOs, some VP of sales, some recruiters, some directors, some managers. And so I had a couple of different locations on the East Coast that I wanted to contact as far as my campaign. Launched my New York campaign. I had about 17 to 20 companies that I reached out to. I think I got like an 85% response rate from them.
Pause there, John. For everyone who's listening, 85% response rate in sales or in marketing is unheard of. Like, his response rate is actually probably one of the highest in our program. Most of the other people are getting 30 to 70% response rate, and you just topped everyone so far, by the way. So congratulations. 85% is insane. And continue, John.
It literally blew me away because, again, like, when I was doing my research initially about the company, I was looking and I saw a guy saying, yeah, I got like a 16% response rate, 32%. I'm like, dude, that's pretty good, because for these big companies, you don't get that. And so for me, launching my first campaign and then getting a response from almost every contact that I sent out and getting interviews booked, it was just like, dude, like, this works. Like, it really does. And also, it really did play into a testimony for the job that I just took on. I reached out to the VP of sales of the company, and when I came in for the interview, he was just so blown away by the email campaign that I sent out to him. He was like, dude, like, if you wouldn't have told me that that was a campaign and it was automated, I never would have knew. He was like, it was just so personalized. Like, it was talking to a regular person. And so for me, it was just like, wow, like, that is so cool. But basically how it happened, I reached out to the VP, sent him a short email, and then we were able to follow up on the phone. And I kind of went through that module of the interview questions, kind of brushing up on some of them, making sure I was sharp on them. Had the phone interview. The phone interview went excellent. Then they scheduled me to come in for the actual the in-home appointment. So I went there, kind of got to meet some of the team, kind of got to meet some of the guys that work remote on the West Coast. That was really awesome. And then they wanted me to come back again for another interview to meet the rest of the team, because all the guys weren't there. And so this was the second time around. Again, they were just really impressed. They were super impressed about, just the pre-hired program. They were so curious. They're like, dude, what's this pre-hired program? What is it? And kind of the best way I summed it up to them, I was like, I mean, it's pretty much like an internship. I was like, but you kind of got to just find out for yourself. Like, just go on their website and check out some of their blogs and stuff. And so they were just asking a lot of questions about it. What did you learn? Like, how was it? And I mean, they were able to kind of just see from that training how much I knew just about the job role and about the industry, about the software and the tools. And they could see the proof of the program. So that was really awesome, just to be kind of like a living testimony of the program for them. But
and then they gave you an offer right there too, right?
Exactly. So it was hilarious. Like, I come in for the third interview. I got to meet the rest of the team. And then after that interview, the VP was like, hey, we're going to get you on a call with the CEO of the company in like 2 days. He's like, he's going to reach out to you. He likes talking to the guys that come in here. So I'm like, all right, cool. So the CEO calls me. We talk for probably about 10, 15 minutes. Maybe about 5 or 10 minutes after that, the VP calls me back. And he's like, hey, man, we want to move through with your application. We want to bring you in. Can you start on the 26th? And I was like, dude, yes. So, it was awesome, man.
Well, congratulations, John. The last question I got for you, and this is for all the people that's been watching videos, reading our emails, our blogs, our interviews, our studies, been on the website, but they've not yet decided to join the pre-hire program, join and become a science-based sales analyst. For anyone that's considering the program, what would you say to them right now?
Man, like, just take a step, man. Like, it was so worth it. I mean, the program is so worth it. You're going to be well trained. And you really just have to go through it. Like, in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of information. You're going to feel a little bit overwhelmed. You're going to feel super unqualified. But when you get to the end of the program, everything's going to make full circle. For me, one of my biggest early takeaways was, man, I don't think I'm going to be good enough to do this job role. Like, I didn't know what the heck I was exactly doing halfway through the program. And then when I got to the end of it, I was like, dude, I know what I have to do. Like, this is so simple. So just trust the process. I mean, I recommend this program literally to everybody I talk to, even the people that aren't the sales type. Like, don't worry about that. You're going to get more than enough training. that you need. And I mean, it's going to be well worth it.
John, thanks for sharing your story. Go ahead, have fun at that new job. I know if you want to go ahead and give a shout out, what's your title and position again?
So I'm a business development representative at AdZerk.
All right, man. Enjoy AdZerk. Thanks for sharing your story.